Brexit trade negotiations extended once again. The EU and UK agree to keep trying, but warn that a no-deal exit is looking more and more likely. Germany will spend Christmas under lockdown. Surging coronavirus cases mean schools and shops must close, and there will be tight limits on social gatherings. And hundreds of Nigerian students missing after gunmen attack a secondary school. The nation's military scouring forests, trying to find the children. Hello and welcome to our viewers here in France and around the world. I'm Charlie James. Brexit trade negotiations still deadlocked. Sunday was the deadline for negotiators to decide whether or not to keep at this, and no deal was struck. So the UK and EU have agreed to go the extra mile in the coming days to try to reach an agreement. The EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, will brief EU ambassadors on Monday morning about the state of play. Deal or no deal, Britain will exit the EU single market on January 1st. Leaders on both sides want to avoid the worst-case economic damage.
Our negotiation teams have been working day and night over the recent days, and despite the exhaustion after almost 1 year of negotiations, and despite the fact that deadlines have been missed over and over, we both think that it is responsible at this point in time to go the extra mile. We have accordingly mandated our negotiators to continue the talks and to see whether an agreement can be reached, even at this late stage. The negotiations continue here in Brussels.
The UK should continue to try. And I think that's what the people of this country would want me to do. We're going to continue to try. And we're going to try with all our hearts, and we'll be as creative as we possibly can. But what we can't do is compromise on that fundamental nature of what Brexit is all about, which is us being able to control our laws, control our fisheries. It's very, very simple. I think our friends get it. And, we remain willing to talk. We'll continue to do so. But in the meantime, let's get ready for the WTO option. And that's what I told the Cabinet.
For more on these negotiations, we welcome Aoife O'Donoghue to the program. She's a professor of international law and global governance at Durham University in the UK. Thank you so much for being with us. We just heard those two leaders there, Ursula von der Leyen and Boris Johnson, sounding pretty exasperated. I mean, nothing has changed for weeks. So is there any sign at all that another few days could really make a difference?
Well, I think that the decision to give them an extra few days does suggest that they do see potential for an agreement. It is getting very close to the line, but I think the language has changed somewhat. I think the ratcheting up, say, things around the level playing field, the word ratcheting up has been dropped, for instance. So I do think while from the outside it might look like there hasn't been any change, I think amongst the negotiators they are getting closer. Whether it's close enough remains to be seen, but the fact that they are willing to keep going, even at this end, I think is a positive sign.
What's the public pressure like in the UK right now, particularly on Boris Johnson?
Well, I think there's two competing, as there always has been. There's two competing kind of ideas. One, for instance, can be seen with regard to the fishing debate that is going on at the moment in the UK, which really is rather new. That really didn't feature up to about 6 months ago. And the ideas around fishing are very much around sovereignty and control and making Brexit as clean and as harsh really as is possible. On the other side, there is mounting media speculation about stockpiling and delays at Calais and at Dover. So there's also at that side, people are starting to get worried about the impact on the economy. The Office for Public Expenditure here says it could be a 2% drop in GDP, and that coupled with COVID, I think is putting pressure on the government to get as good a deal as possible. And also amongst farmers, there's particularly sheep farmers, there is a lot of concern and worry. So as has been the case from the beginning, you have two different groups. One that wants as soft as Brexit as is possible, which really is gone. That possibility is gone now. And the other ones that really wouldn't mind leaving with no deal. And I think Boris Johnson is having to navigate it to make it look like it's a win for the UK, no matter the outcome, deal or no deal, in fact.
I mean, you just mentioned a few specific groups and their concerns, but if there is no deal on January 1st, how is the average person in the UK going to start feeling it?
Well, a lot of people have already started getting emails from Amazon, which is, I think, a pretty good indicator. If you shop through their UK portal, they've started sending emails to people telling them that things could become more expensive, things could be delayed, that there will be a longer, that it'll probably, most packages coming from outside the UK will take longer. For if you're in farming, especially if you're a sheep farmer, you're looking at a huge additional cost to selling your product. Most sheep products are sold down to continental Europe, and there would be a 60% increase on the cost of sheep. So as you can imagine, if you are a sheep farmer, that sounds extremely difficult. Now, the government have said, the UK government, that they will protect that group, but at the same time, it is quite a stark future for them. If you live in Northern Ireland, it could definitely impact with regard to the border with Ireland and the border with Britain, because while that part of the negotiation has been completed, if there is no deal, the amount of checks would in fact be significantly bigger. So that if you live in Northern Ireland, life becomes more complicated than needs be, because while the protocol would operate, it still relies on there being a broader trade deal to some extent anyway. If you're in the fishing industry, it'd be quite a change in that the access to UK fishing waters would be severely limited. That being said, the UK doesn't have the fleet or the storage facilities to store all of those fish, and also selling those fish back into the EU market would also rely on a huge amount of tariffs. For the consumer, I think increase in costs would naturally flow, of course, because there would be tariffs and extra taxes on products and delays. So I think on day-to-day consumer in the supermarket will probably see a slow ratcheting up of prices.
Aoife O'Donoghue from Durham University, thank you so much for your time. Germans will be spending the holiday under a new, more strict lockdown order. After an exponential rise in cases recently, governors of Germany's 16 states agreed to tighten the rules. Christmas will have to be less festive. Among the coronavirus measures, home gatherings will be limited, and there will be no singing allowed in church.
Not much to celebrate this holiday period, as new tighter restrictions are set to take effect on Wednesday. Saying there's an urgent need to take action, the German Chancellor has announced a new national lockdown that will last until January 10th.
Wir werden ab Mittwoch, ab dem 16. Dezember, den Einzelhandel schließen und nur noch für Lebensmittel und ähnliche dringende Waren des täglichen Bedarfs.
For the past 6 weeks, Germany has been in a partial lockdown, with bars and restaurants closed. But officials say those steps have failed to slow the spread of the coronavirus. For many Germans, the news came as no surprise.
Naja, also ich fühle mich eigentlich nicht unter Druck gesetzt, weil ich schon in weiser Voraussicht die Weihnachtsgeschenke dieses Jahr sehr früh gekauft habe und natürlich auch einiges bestellt habe dieses Jahr.
Ich persönlich bin schon darauf eingestellt. Ich habe das ganze Jahr schon darauf vorbereitet, dass es wieder zu einem zweiten Lockdown kommt. Und habe meinen Online-Shop zum Beispiel, mein Angebot im Online-Shop erweitert und auch neue Produkte dazu.
In addition to shutting non-essential shops, schools will also be closed, as will hair salons. The public consumption of alcohol has been banned, so too the sale of fireworks. Banks will remain open, and employers are being asked to let staff work from home whenever possible. Once seen as a COVID success story, Germany is now experiencing a record rise in new daily death tolls and infections. The number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 increased by over 20,000 on Sunday and now stands at more than 1.3 million. Almost 22,000 people have died.
After nearly 2 months out of sight, Algeria's president has suddenly resurfaced. Abdelmejid Tebboune became ill from COVID-19 in October and was hospitalized in Germany. In a televised statement Sunday, Tebboune said it may be several more weeks before he is healthy enough to return to his country. His long absence has raised concerns of an institutional crisis. For nearly 2 years, Algeria has seen widespread anti-government protests, and Tebboune has been unable to sign recently passed constitutional reforms into law. In the video, the president spoke clearly but has obviously lost weight.
As you know, 2 months ago, I was quickly taken abroad because I contracted coronavirus. It may take 2 or 3 weeks, but God willing, I will regain all my physical strength. I am away from the country, but that doesn't mean I have forgotten about it. Day by day, if not hour by hour, I am following what is happening in the country, and when necessary, I give instructions to the presidency.
In Nigeria, hundreds of students remain missing after gunmen attacked a secondary school in the country's northwestern Katsina state. Police say a large group of bandits with AK-47 rifles attacked the school Friday night. Shanamil Jamin tells us more about the search for the children.
Demanding answers, but at a loss. On Sunday, desperate parents congregated at the government science secondary school in Kankara town, Nigeria, where their sons were abducted by gunmen 2 days earlier. Abu Bakr Lawal traveled over 120 kilometers just for a sliver of news on 2 of his 3 sons among those missing.
I have a call from somebody intimidating me that there is a problem in this school. He is here with my son, who was in the SS2 class, and that was the senior one. Since yesterday I was here.
Murja Mohammed, whose son was also taken, begged authorities for help. In response, President Muhammadu Buhari's office released a statement declaring that the military had located the bandits' hideout in a forest close to the area, while gunfire had allegedly been exchanged. A third of the boys are meanwhile reported to have escaped when the gunmen who were riding motorcycles took them, but it remains unclear as to how many remain captive or what the group wanted. Friday's attack is believed to have been carried out by one of several groups of bandits active in northwestern Nigeria. Militia groups like these are notorious for kidnapping people for ransom.
Farmers in India showing no signs of stopping their protests against proposed agricultural reforms. On Sunday, tens of thousands gathered near the capital. They have been blocking access roads into New Delhi for more than 2 weeks now. Catherine Viette takes us to the scene.
Gathered at the access points to the Indian capital, the procession stretches for several kilometers. Coming from the countryside, these farmers have brought their tractors and their animals, determined to block this access route for as long as necessary. Here, everyone opposes the new agricultural laws that are meant to overhaul the agrarian sector. These northern farmers were some of the first to join the movement.
So this is my truck. It's also my home.
Like the other protesters here, he's refused to leave until the law is scrapped.
So we will stay here, maybe 6 months, maybe 5 months, maybe finish tomorrow, go back to home.
Currently in India, farmers sell their products in state markets at fixed prices. With the new reforms, they'll be able to offer their goods to private companies, but many worry this will end up lowering the purchase price and will only benefit big corporations.
We farmers from the north, we sell our goods at low prices. We aren't paid as we should be, and when the big distribution groups come, they'll fix their price, and we will be paid even less.
So far, 6 rounds of talks between officials and farmer union leaders have failed to reach a deal on the proposed reforms. The government says the new laws will double farmers' incomes.
That's all for this edition, but do stay with us here on France 24. More news up next.